Shalom, everybody. Shalom to the Facebook Live world. I know we're just getting started, so I'm going to give a few moments for this, hopefully to spread out there and people to join. So it's open, it's there, it's here, but we'll wait again for some people to join and then we'll officially start. So let this just be as it is, and hopefully you'll join us. Oh, I already see 16 people are watching. That's amazing. Hello to everybody out there. Great. Okay, looks like a bunch of people connected very quickly, which is really nice to see. So let's begin, and hopefully more people will join us as we go along. My name is Akiva Gersh, and I'm a core educator at Alexander Mas High School in Israel. I've been a full-time teacher there for over 9 years, and have to say that it is a big zchut, a big merit, a big blessing to be part of the Alexander Mas School and organization family, and to be part of this world of Israel education and guiding and teaching and learning together with students from all over America and even now internationally, outside of America, including Australia. And I'll just share like a few things, just a little bit about myself, because I'm not sure who's out there. I know this is open to all alumni, many years of alumni, so you might know me, you might not know me. If you do know me, feel free to say hello in the comments. If you don't know me, you can also say hello. And I'll just say now, and I'll probably say it again as I see more people joining, but the comments are for you. Unfortunately, sound-wise, this is only one way. I'm speaking and you're listening, but you can comment on anything that's coming up. You can ask a question, you could ask for more information, or for the teaching to focus on another aspect of Chanukah. Really, that's there for you, so feel free to use it. And so again, some of you might know me, some of you might not. But again, I'm Akiva Gersh. I originally am from New York, a suburb outside of New York City. And just really briefly, but personally, myself, I grew up very lightly connected to Judaism and to the Jewish world and to Israel. You might see me right now and be like, what happened? Because I probably come across as very religious looking. And I also live in Israel. Personally, I went through a spiritual transformation, you can call it. I went on a spiritual journey, specifically in college, and looking for more spiritual meaning, cultural meaning, connection to my past and to my people, and that brought me to the Jewish world in a whole new and profound way when I was around 21, 22 years old. And that whole process and journey was very, very connected to Israel as well. I came to Israel for the first time when I was 22, 23 years old. And though I was not yet quote-unquote religious yet, and didn't think I was going to become at that point, I felt something very, very deeply with the land and the country and this place. And I knew within days of being here that one day I was going to spend the rest of my life here. I knew I was going to move my life. It took some years, and it took meeting my wife, Tamar, who was actually also an AMHSI alumnus from the Akiva Hebrew Academy, now called Barak, in Philadelphia. Her Abba actually is Rabbi Schofield, who is the headmaster of Akiva for about 18 years. And so we have a lot of AMHSI blood and experience in our family. And we made Aliyah in 2004. And it was definitely, for me, one of the best decisions of my life. Being here now for over 12 years and raising our family. We have 4 kids, thank God. And just a lot of good things. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're not here to talk about my life and my personal journey, but just wanted you to know a little bit about who this person is that you see on the screen, especially, again, if you don't know me. Right now, I'm actually at the tail end of a 6-week group with Australia, an Australian group from Sydney, the Emmanuel School, great group. 3rd year in a row that they're here with us and that I get to be with them. And we're about to go to Tzfat tomorrow for Chanukah, for the last 2 nights of Chanukah, which is really, really special because Tzfat is an incredible place to be for Chanukah. So we're starting this series of having our core educators share thoughts and teachings and ideas related to the holidays. So this is our first one on Chanukah. There'll be other ones in the future with Tu B'Shvat and Pesach and others. So I'm really glad and honored to be part of this and to share some thoughts on Hanukkah. So I have some teachings and some thoughts I'd like to share with you all. And again, if you have any questions on any of this, feel free, please, to type them in the comments, and I'll see that, and I'll bring that into our learning here together as well. First of all, I'll just say this. When we talk about anything Jewish, there's a billion things you can say. Whether it's a verse in the Torah, whether it's a Torah portion, whether it's one word, whether it's a piece of our history, whether it's a holiday, anything. There's so many aspects and there's so many dimensions and so many levels in which we can talk about it. I say that because I'm going to share a few things, but of course there's many, many other things out there that can be said and are said and are good to say about Hanukkah. So I've just organized a few thoughts that I'd like to share. And let's begin. So we're now on the 6th night of Chanukah. In Israel, we're now on the 6th night. It's just a little bit past midnight here. I'm also a musician, so I have that kind of stay up late kind of energy as a musician. The only problem is that I have to wake up early in the morning, so the two don't really fit together so well, but that's me. And that's why I'm staying up late. In America, already in the East Coast, you're starting to enter into Chanukah in just a few minutes, I imagine, into the 6th night. But I was thinking the other day that Hanukkah really encapsulates all of Jewish history. We can see in the story of Hanukkah, in the holiday of and the celebration of Hanukkah, really the past, present, and future of the Jewish people. So hopefully that will become clear as I continue on and share with you more ideas. So, first of all, if we're talking about the past, I want to take us to the very beginning. I want to take us to in the beginning. And we learn that Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim et haaretz. We learn the opening verse of the Torah that in the beginning God creates the heaven and the earth. Already by the 3rd verse, after the 2nd verse describes was darkness and water and just like a whole kind of chaotic mix of life and reality, or non-life or pre-life, whatever it might be, we learn that the first thing that gets created is light. V'yomer Elokim yihi or, v'yihi or. Right? As God said that there be light, and there was light. And so right away in the 3rd verse, we have the first thing that's created, and that's light. Now, we wonder what this light is. Usually when we read this verse, maybe the first time or even maybe the 100th time when we read this verse, we think light. Like when we think of light, we think of the light that we know in our physical world. But then we get a few verses later, we get to the 4th day. And when we think about light in our world, so in a modern day world, we think about electrical light, light bulbs and the like. But in our natural world, we think about the sun and the reflection of the sun's light on the moon and the stars. Excuse me. But the problem is that on the 4th day of creation, we get to the creation of the sun, and the moon and the stars. So then we go back to that first day in that 3rd verse, like, well, what was that like? Right, so the sages, of course, pick up on this, and the sages tell us that this was not a physical light, but it was a spiritual light. And it was a spiritual light. Now, what does that mean, a spiritual light? It's kind of hard to describe. But it's interesting. I remember when I was a kid, I used to see cartoons. When somebody had an idea, there would be a light bulb going off in their head. Like light is almost synonymous. As my Hebrew gets better, my English gets worse. Sorry about that. It might happen again. Synonymous. There you go. With ideas, with revelations, with awareness, with understanding. Right. So when we think about light as a spiritual entity, we think about presence, we think about this awareness, we think about something very sublime, a deep understanding, a wisdom. And this is one way of understanding what that light was at the beginning of creation that was created on the first day in that 3rd verse. Now, why am I mentioning any of this with Chanukah? Of course, light has to do with Chanukah. Of course, there's a direct correlation with that. But as you might remember from your own class and course here at AMHSI, we tapped in a little bit at one point into the Hasidic movement, and we tapped in as well to Kabbalah before that. Maybe just a very little, just for a brief moment, for half an hour tops. But we did talk about this aspect of Judaism that kind of focuses on the mystical, and maybe beneath the surface of reality and beneath the surface even of the verses of the Torah. And tell us that we can't take everything literally, we can't take everything superficially, we can't take everything or try to understand everything just based on what we see with our own physical eyes. That there's depths of understanding to the world around us, and there's depths of understanding to the verses of the Torah and to Judaism and to the holidays. Everything has like a simple understanding and a very, very deep, complex, and even mystical and spiritual understanding. And I think if we really want to understand Hanukkah, we have to go into that spiritual mode. Right? We can talk about the story, what happened in the cultural and historical event, and we will tie that into our teaching tonight. But that's not the only level. So I guess I'm starting off like with already kind of going into the depths of the spiritual essence and aspect of Hanukkah. But I think it's very important because it already shows up at the very beginning of the Torah. So this light that gets created, this spiritual light, again, it's not physical, but it's really powerful. And the sages say that this light was so powerful that God got scared, so to speak, that it would get misused in the future by those who don't know how to use it properly. So God hid it away, and it was called the Or HaGanuz, right? The hidden light. And we learn that on Chanukah, that light comes back down into the world. That this hidden light from the beginning of creation comes down not only on Hanukkah, can come down like at other times in the year and in history and in people's lives personally, but for everybody, from the plain, simple person to the deepest and biggest Kabbalist and mystic in the Jewish world, this hidden light comes down in the days of Hanukkah. Now that in and of itself I think is a really cool idea, because when we're looking at the lights, we're told by the Kabbalah that it's really the hidden light that's behind the physical lights of the Chanukiah, of the menorah. Right? And again, that's nice within and of itself, but again, I think it goes even deeper. And it reminds us of what was happening at the beginning of creation. Let me tell you something about the beginning of creation from a Jewish perspective. And this is kind of like where science and religion, science and Judaism specifically kind of like meet and overlap. Many times people think that science and religion are two totally separate worlds, and they have no business talking to each other, and they can't overlap, and they can't make sense of each other. But the truth is, in our world today, we're seeing these two worlds really come close together and really explain each other and really see how they oftentimes are saying the same thing, just in a different language, using different words. So one of the greatest Kabbalists of all time is called the Ramban, Nachmanides. And he lives in Spain. He made his way all the way to Yerushalayim. And he teaches that at the beginning of creation, all that was created was one little speck of matter. Right? That's all that was created, from nothing. Right? But everything that came after that little speck of matter that was created from nothing, the speck of matter that he calls a hilui, which is a Greek word he says, which he says, Ein mamash bo. It was so small like it wasn't there, but it was there, but it wasn't there. Right? It was a piece of matter, it was so small, but it was there. Everything after that comes from that small piece of matter. Everything, ever since the beginning of creation until today, came from that small piece of matter. Like, it sounds like the Big Bang, right? This idea of like densely compacted matter, and boom, everything just explodes and like creates the entire universe up until today, and it's still being created. The Ramban talked about that about 1,000 years ago in Kabbalistic language, about how everything was contained in this first piece of matter, and then everything came from that. Again, why am I mentioning any of this? Because it connects to Hanukkah in this kind of way. In the beginning of creation, we learn, right? We had this first speck of matter, and then we had like this light, and we learn that the original vision of the world, and everything that would be in the world, and everyone who would live in that world, was contained in the very, very beginning of creation, that first piece of matter and that first light. Right? In that hidden light was like the the vision for the world. Like when anyone creates anything, whether it's a table or a house or a building or a park, they have a vision, they have a plan. Like, what do I want this thing to look like in the end? What do I want this thing to be? So too with the world. It wasn't just random. It wasn't just like stam, as we say in Hebrew. It had a vision. And that hidden light kind of like contains that vision. So when that light comes back into the world, so to speak, on Hanukkah, and we look into the Chanukah candles, we can reconnect to that original light of creation. And even more importantly, I think we can connect to that original vision, that original goal of creation, what this world was meant to be, and what this world could be, and what we wanted this world to be, so to speak, because we were kind of there too, right? And I think it takes Hanukkah to a very, very personal level that, it's sweet and it's fun, and we're lighting with our families and our friends, we're making latkes and spinning dreidel and all these great, amazing things, and it's such a community and national holiday. But it's also such a very, very, very deep personal holiday, and that's why we're encouraged when we light the Hanukkah candles to actually sit with them and just be there with them. Don't light them and run away. Don't light them and pick up a phone. Don't light them and pick up have a phone conversation with somebody. Sit with them and stare at them and be with them and even meditate on them, because when we look at that light, somewhere deep inside ourselves, we're remembering who we are and who we can be and who we're meant to be, both as individuals and as a nation, as the Jewish people, and beyond, as an entire world. Right? So kind of like encoded, embedded in the lights of the Chanukah flames is this reminder, is this message of who we're supposed to be in this world and who we can be in this world. Again, as individuals and as the Jewish people, as Am Yisrael. That's a very, very powerful thing. Right? So I want to start with that as our first kind of thought teaching about Hanukkah, because it takes us to the very beginning of the story of our people. Back to the very beginning of the story of creation. Third verse, creation of light, this hidden light, this spiritual light, boom, and it's coming back down into the world on Hanukkah, and it's really there to remind us, right? Judaism is filled with so many reminders. Right? The more I live as a Jew and get into Judaism, I'm just overwhelmed in a very positive way. I'm impressed by the amount of reminders we have in our tradition, whether it's the mezuzah, whether it's certain mitzvot like tzitzit or tefillin or many other things, right? We have so many of these things that are there to remind us to not forget, because it's so easy to forget. I forget all the time, like ask my wife, right? I'm forgetting things all the time. And I really appreciate the fact that Judaism has these weekly, monthly, yearly reminders for us in various forms that are there to really help us to understand like what we're doing in the world, because it's so easy to go off track. And Hanukkah is like 8 nights. 8 nights of candles. On some level, it's like one of the simplest mitzvahs that we do the entire year. Right? Pesach has so many different mitzvot, and Sukkot has so many things. Shabbos is chock full of things. Hanukkah, like I always kind of forget. Like I'm always like surprised and I don't know, just like, wow, really? It's just like lighting candles? Like, yeah, there's like special like inserts of prayers and Hallel for sure, that's important as well. But in terms of like a physical action, we just like light candles. It can take like not that long. Right? But it's so deep and it's so important. And I don't know, I sometimes think like when we think about like the Jewish people around the world, especially today, like we know, there's so many different forms and expressions of Jewish identity and Judaism and Jewish practice and whatever, rates of assimilation and various other things. It seems Chanukah is like one of those holidays that all kinds of Jews connect to. Maybe more than any other holiday. I know Pesach's a big one and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur for sure, but Chanukah, there's something about Chanukah that brings us back home. It brings us back. Like we hear the message, like not with our physical ears, but with our souls. Right? Like we're drawn to it because there's something inside the story, inside the holiday that's just like, it's beyond the presents. I know like the little kids and even those big kids, like we love the presents and we love the Hanukkah gelt and all that. Like all those exterior things are really awesome, fun, and even important. But there's something I think alluring and attractive and magnetic about this holiday, and it brings us back to it year after year, reminding us who we are as a Jewish people and what we're here to do. And I think that kind of like, brings me to the next point that I want to share with you. One of the aspects of Hanukkah that I find so fascinating is, first of all, I'll just preface it by saying this is, Hanukkah is the story of the Jewish people standing up for themselves. It's saying, I'm a Jew. And on one level, it's okay that I'm a Jew. It's okay to be a Jew in this world. But if you have a hard time with that, and if you give me a hard time with that, I'm not going to give in. I'm not just going to take it, sitting down, lying down. I'm going to stand up for myself. I'm going to fight even if I have to, right? And I was just reading something about Hanukkah just the other day, and it was saying, like, during this time period of the Greek oppression of the Jewish people, and we learned that the Greeks were the first nation to really oppress the Jewish people for being Jewish. We had been oppressed in other ways for other, reasons, political, economic, whatever, but come the Greeks, it was the first time we were experiencing anti-Semitism, blatant anti-Semitism, because of who we are as a Jewish people, our Jewish culture, our Jewish practice, our Jewish religion. Right? The historians, are quoted by when they say that the Greeks invented anti-Semitism. And living under the rule is very oppressive, as we know. And we know that many Jews died in practicing Judaism under the Greek oppressive rule. Right? They were willing to give up their lives. This is a passion. Like, the Greeks never saw something like that. Later on, same with the Romans. Who would give up their life for their religious practice and belief? Like, it didn't make sense to them. Like, back then the entire world was polytheistic. So, like, what does it matter if I have 500 gods? I'll have 600 gods, or I'll have 1,000 gods. Like, sign me up. Like, I'm not going to lose my life over it. The Jewish people at this time period in history, over 2,000 years ago, about 2,200 years ago, were the only people on this planet who were so different than the Greeks and everybody else around them. And they're the only people who are willing to literally give up their lives for their beliefs and for their culture and their tradition and their history and their people and their future. Right? The Greeks couldn't understand that. But then, like, a change was made. Like, in the story, it's just like this moment when the Greeks come to Modi'in, right? Because we learn that the Greeks would go from town to town and gather the Jews and force them to worship idols and eat pig and offer a pig on an altar that they built in that town. And then they made the big mistake of going to Modi'in. And in Modi'in there was a man, Mattatyahu, right? And we know that Mattatyahu saw what was happening. He was so appalled that he just got up, and instead of being killed, instead of giving up his life for his Jewish belief, he went on the offensive. And we don't celebrate death. We don't celebrate killing our enemies or killing anybody, right? But we know that sometimes in Jewish history and sometimes in humanity, it's kill or be killed. Unfortunately, it's the saddest thing in the world, I think, right? All the bloodshed and all the wars that we've seen throughout human history, it literally, breaks my heart to read about it and to know about it. But that's the unfortunate reality, and the Jewish people are a part of that as well, and we know oppression all too well. And oftentimes it's kill or be killed. And Mattatyahu made that decision. I'm not going to die for being Jewish. I'm going to stand up for being Jewish. And if it means I have to kill, unfortunately, that's what I'll have to do. And we know that Mattatyahu jumps out of the crowd and he kills a Greek soldier, and he starts the rebellion, right? Which will last for years, but eventually it will succeed. And it's this real, like, strong stance of, like, standing up and saying, this is who we are. And if you have a problem with it, like, so we'll fight, right? There's something I feel like hidden in that, because that's like, again, like, that's like the story we all know. That's the story we've grown up with for many, many years, since Hebrew school and day school and all that kind of stuff. But there's something really powerful, I think, in that, because when we look at all the holidays, every Jewish holiday has a message in it. Every Jewish holiday has a teaching, something that we're supposed to take from it and with us in the future. When we look at all the other holidays, either they're very deeply and directly related to our personal connection with God, or they're about commemorating and celebrating the formation of the Jewish people. Right? Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, the former; Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, the latter, all about the development of the Jewish people coming out of Egypt and going through the desert, right, getting ready to come into the land of Israel. But then comes Hanukkah, and it's not about that. Like, we've already been a nation, right? So there's a different message, and it's about standing up to our oppressors. And now Purim is also about that, but even the Purim story is different. Purim, we're facing a genocide, right? Purim story, we're facing, like, getting wiped out by this evil leader, this evil man, Haman, right? And the whole story about, like, dealing with that. But Hanukkah's not that. The Greeks were not interested in genocide. They weren't trying to. They did kill Jews, but it wasn't an ethnic cleansing like Haman was planning, right? What the Greeks wanted to do was kill us on the inside. The Greeks wanted to kill our culture, our religious, our spiritual connection, beliefs, and identity. Right? They don't mind that physically we're here living in the world, but just be like us, be like the Greeks, right? And many Jews of that generation we know were going towards that and had gone towards that. Right? So they wanted to get rid of Judaism. They wanted to get rid of Torah. They wanted to get rid of Jewish values. They wanted to get rid of this unique and still relatively new religious and spiritual path in the world. And Hanukkah is the first time, and really the only time, that we have a holiday that commemorates that. That commemorates the standing up of Jews, for the Jewish faith, belief, and tradition. And there's something that I find very, very powerful. Right? That it's just, again, going back to the idea of reminders, it's every time we get to Hanukkah, it's this constant reminder that our ancestors, right, stood up for themselves as Jews, to be Jews, as Jews, right, 200 years ago, approximately, for the Hanukkah story, and then so many times after that, they had such deep passion and belief and connection to who they were as Jews that they were constantly willing to rise up, to fight, to sacrifice, to stand up. Right? And then that lesson that gets passed on to us all these hundreds and thousands of years later, it's so powerful. We're on the receiving end of this like snowball that has just gone so big, of so many generations of Jews who have taken this idea and this message so seriously. And we're the receivers of that. And then it comes to us, right, again, very, very personally, like, what am I going to do with that? Where in my life is my Judaism being challenged by the outside world? It might not be the same thing as the generation of the Greeks over 2,000 years ago, where it's like really, like life-threatening. But I might live in a culture, in a place, in America, around the world, it could even be in Israel, where I'm not fully free to be a Jew. Right? And what am I going to do with that? And being a Jew, right, means many different things to many different people. Right? But if I feel that I'm not able to be, or I'm not being the kind of Jew that I want to do because of certain outside influences, so I think that motivates us, influences us, maybe even begs of us to ask ourselves, so what am I okay with that? And if I'm not okay with that, what am I doing? Right? And again, like, it's another level of like these 8 days of Hanukkah. Think about myself, who am I as a Jew? Where in my life am I like this, proud to be a Jew, strong to be a Jew, right? Even outward, not like in a showing off kind of way, or like, look at me, the Jew, but just like I'm feeling comfortable to express my Judaism and my Jewish identity even on the outside. And where am I not? And in those places where am I not, like, ask myself the question, am I okay with that? Am I comfortable with that? And if not, again, right, what do I want to do with that? Where do I want to go with that? Where do I want to bring that? Right? So a couple more thoughts just want to share with you guys, and maybe we'll end this. And again, for whoever's joining us out there, if you want to say anything, comment, feel free. It'd be great to hear from some people. I think it's important to look at when Hanukkah falls out. Right? We know that it's in the wintertime, the darkest time of the year, at least in the northern hemisphere, for any Aussies out there. And that's also symbolic and very deep, and a metaphor for the idea that, like, in the darkest time of the year, we're lighting lights. Right? When it gets dark, what do the Jewish people do? We light lights. We're so into light. Right? Shabbos lights and Hanukkah lights and lights on Chagim and Yantav and all that kind of stuff. Right? The Jewish people are so deeply connected to lights. And that in and of itself is a powerful message of Hanukkah. There's a story, I believe it was the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Somebody went up to the Lubavitcher Rebbe and was so overwhelmed. He said, Rebbe, like, I'm so overwhelmed with the darkness in our world. There was so much pain, so much suffering, so much hate, so much darkness. Like, what can I do about it? How do we get rid of the darkness and make this world a better place, the world that it could be? And the Rebbe, like in a very Rebbe kind of fashion, says to this person, he says, look, we can't combat the darkness. We just can't. The only thing we could do, though, and this we can do, is we can increase the light. Right? And that, for me, like, sums up the Jewish people. Right? There's so much darkness, like, we're not encouraged, and we're told not to combat it head on. But what we can do is we can add light. Every single day of our lives, every single moment, we have opportunities galore to add light. It might be an action that we do. It might be words that we say. It might be words that we don't say. It might be positive thoughts that we have about other people or even ourselves. All these, there's myriad ways myriad of ways that we can influence the world in a positive way, each time adding light. That's really the idea of the Jewish people, of Judaism, of Tikkun Olam, that every single day I have opportunities to increase the light, right? To do my part in bringing more light into the world, right? Oftentimes when I meet with my groups for Shabbat, we get together before Shabbat, a few minutes before Shabbat, I bring my guitar, and we do a little singing and a little sharing, a thought, a story. And one of the thoughts I tried to share with all my groups goes back to 9/11, right? 2001, horrible, horrible day. I happened to be in New York that day myself, and it was a Tuesday when the towers were attacked and came crumbling down. Just a few days later, Thursday, maybe it was Friday itself, then President Bush spoke to the nation. Right? Words of encouragement and motivation, we're together, unity, all that kind of stuff. And he asked the nation to do something, to kind of bring the nation back together and to kind of show that unity and increase that unity amongst the American people. What did he ask them to do? He asked them on Friday at 6 p.m. He wanted the entire nation to light a candle. Right? He understood the power of lighting a candle, of lighting light on people. When you light the candle, when you see the candle, when you see the light, the effect, the impact that light has on us, right? Visually and spiritually. But it just happened to be, right, it was September, it was fall time, at 6 o'clock, very, very close was to the time of Shabbos lighting time. Right? So without knowing it, what was then President Bush having the entire nation of America doing? He was on some level having them light Shabbos candles. Right? Because he understood, maybe he didn't understand it with his mind, but maybe somewhere deep in his kishkas he understood something that the Jewish people have understood for so long. Right? That even after the darkness, we can still light a light. We can add light, we can increase light, and we understand the power of light. Every single week, we end the week with whatever craziness happened. Hopefully we have great weeks, right? But even if we don't, with every crazy week and convoluted week and a week full of mistakes and I can't believe the week I just had, we end the week always lighting a light. It's so incredible. It's so amazing. Right? We're focusing on the positive. We're like, despite what just happened, or despite any darkness that just occurred, I'm focusing on the good. I'm focusing on the positive. I'm focusing on the light. And that's Shabbos every week, and that's Hanukkah every year. Right? 8 nights of light. Right? And connected to that is the timing of Hanukkah. Right? The Hanukkah always falls out, obviously, again in this time of the year, and the Torah readings of this time of the year around the Hanukkah are always more or less the same. And what are we reading in the Torah portions around the time of Hanukkah? We're reading stories that are all about dreams. Joseph and his dreams, right? Paro and his dreams, Joseph interpreting the dreams. It's all like right? It's all about dreams. Right? It's all about dreams. It's about having these dreams, and understanding, right? In Judaism, Judaism teaches us that dreams are 1/60th of prophecy, that we can kind of see things, so to speak, like of the future. Like maybe okay, so it's only 1/60th. It's not like totally perfectly clear, but like we're getting a hint. We're getting some kind of subtle hint about like the world around us and what's going on. Really, dreams are very powerful. There's a teaching in the Talmud that says that a dream uninterpreted is like a letter that was never read. Powerful, right? Excuse me. So dreams are very powerful in the Jewish tradition. And in this week's Torah portion, and around this time, we're seeing all these stories about dreams. And I think one of the messages that we can take from that is that we're encouraged to dream. Right? We're really encouraged to dream. Judaism encourages us to dream the wildest dreams. Right? Like Herzl said, setting up in the first World Zionist Congress in 1897, he had the craziest dream in the world. People thought he was nuts. Right? What are you talking about? There's going to be a Jewish state after all these years in the world like that it is today. How he dared to dream that dream. And because he did, look where we are today. Of course, he wasn't the only one that helped to make that happen. So many other people did. But he dared to dream the dream, and those with him in his generation and generations afterwards. Right? Jews were dreamers. Right? And Judaism is a tradition that encourages us and expects us to dream. Right? But the one thing about dreams is, we have to wake up from our dreams too. We can't just keep them when we're asleep. Right? And that's this week's Torah portion, Mikates, the language of getting up. Right? We have the dream, awesome, and then wake up and go do it. right? You have the most amazing dream in the world, but if you don't do anything about it, so it's going to stay a dream, and who cares, right? And so Judaism says, Yofi, have the dreams, but then wake up from the dream, so to speak, right? And go and put your all into realizing the dream and bringing the dream to life. And I think that's also a very, very deep and important aspect of Hanukkah as well, is when we're looking into the Hanukkah lights and we're dreaming of what we could be, what this world could be. Hopefully it will motivate us to go out and take another step, take another action, maybe even another few actions of realizing these dreams of ours, of our people of the world, right? Tikkun olam, right? It's not the only aspect of Judaism, but it's a pervasive aspect of Judaism, right? That what we're doing in this world is to make this world a better place, right? How are we going to do it? Right? It's through our actions. We're the vessels. We're the ones. It's nobody else, right? We can't wait for anybody else. If we do, it's not going to happen. Right? And again, I think it's one of those eternal messages of Hanukkah. And the last thought I want to share with you guys is on a different kind of note. We've been talking kind of more spiritual and all that. I want to tie it into what's happening today. Not to get too political. It's already 12:30 here in Israel. And I don't want to make this a political conversation. But look, news happens around us and things happen and we need to be aware. And, it's part of the unfolding of our world and of our story. We're part of that story. And we know what's been happening recently with the UN Security Council resolution and John Kerry's speech and all these things. I'm not here to tell you what to think, or not necessarily even what I think. And I imagine out there is a diversity of opinions. I don't know. But one thing that Hanukkah teaches us, or at least highlights, is this connection to the land of Israel. Right? We have so many archaeological finds from this time period, from the Hasmonean dynasty, from the Maccabees, from this time period in history, that have been stuck in the ground for hundreds of years, thousands of years, and waiting for modern day Israeli archaeologists to dig in the ground and find them. And we have, and we've shared them with the world, including ourselves. And when we hold these coins or whatever artifacts they might be, we're holding our history, we're holding our connection, we're reminding ourselves again, whoa, we were really here. It wasn't just a story in a book. Our people were really here in this land. We're so deeply connected to this land, so embedded in this land. And of course, at MAS, at AMHSI, it's a big thing of what we're trying to share and experience by bringing students here to experience that, to see that, from Tel Gezer to Ir David to places all over this country. Wow, our people were here. And the things they left behind in the ground that we're digging out today they're evidence of that. And we know that we're living in a world today that's denying that connection for years now, but it seems to be getting stronger and stronger and stronger. You and I, we're living in now a time period today where people are blatantly just ignoring all of this evidence that we have been here, and this is a land that's deeply connected to the Jewish people. Ignoring all that and saying so ignorantly that we don't have a connection to this place, and that we don't deserve to be in this place. And the latest UN resolution, and again, without getting into too much political detail, even the speech that John Kerry shared the other day, it's really kind of bashing that and saying that, no, you don't belong there. You don't have this connection. And Hanukkah comes to say, no, we do, because it reminds us about Jerusalem. It reminds us of our passion for this place, our dedication towards this place, this fight for Jerusalem. We had to fight for Jerusalem because it got taken away from us. And Jerusalem became a Greek, polytheistic city in that time period. And the Maccabees came and fought and regained control over it and rededicated. And that's what Hanukkah is. It's a rededication of the temple in Jerusalem. It's reminding us that we lost it and we got it back. And we're rededicating it. Right? It's this everlasting covenant, this connection between us and this land, this place. And even if Jews don't live here, we know, you guys know, whoever's out there, right? You've been to Mas, you've been to Israel once, twice, many times, who knows? You know, even if you don't live here, you can come here, you can feel such a deep connection to this place. Right? It's the homeland of the Jewish people. The first time I ever came here, I was straight out of college, I traveled in Africa for 2 months, wasn't really religiously, spiritually connected yet to Judaism, but I felt something here that I never felt before. Just a little side tidbit, when I was in college, I was an environmental studies major, then a religious studies major. But when I was an environmental studies major, we talked about this ecological concept of sense of place. I didn't know what that meant. Like sense of place. I always heard like I didn't know it. What it means to have a sense of place, feel connected to a place. I grew up in the suburbs of New York. I didn't know what that meant. And when I came here when I was 22, 23 for the first time, like I said before, like within days, I got it. I finally understood what it meant to have a sense of place. This is our place. This is the Jewish people's place. And the world might be trying really hard to deny that, to fight that, to take that away from us. But we have to be strong, like the Maccabees. Like we have to stand up in our own way, in our generation's way. Right? We don't have to be a soldier with a gun. We have to go out there with a sword. But on some level, we do have to go out there and do something, say something, write something. Right? And I think that's another eternal teaching of the story of Chanukah, that if we, the Jewish people, just sit down and don't do anything, we're not going to last. We would have been long gone already. Right? We are a people that has survived, yes, and needs to survive, yes, but we've done so because we've stood up, because we have that holy chutzpah that we're saying to ourselves and to the world, like, we need to be here. There's something that we have. Not like an arrogant, we're better than you kind of thing, but there's something about the Jewish people that we have that we need to share with the world. Right? It's part of who we are. So it's part of the Jewish DNA. And I just want to end with a quote actually from the book of Maccabees that a friend of mine just shared on social media, and I just thought it was really powerful to hear these words, and especially again in light of what's been being said about us and our connection to this land and what we should and should not be doing. So this comes from the book of Maccabees, the first book, chapter 15, and it was after after the revolt, right after we successfully liberated much of Judea from foreign rule, in Jerusalem, of course. So the Greek leader sent a letter to the Hasmonean leadership demanding the immediate withdrawal from illegally occupied territories in exchange for peace. Right? And this is what Shimon the Maccabee had to say in response. Check out these words, said over 2,000 years ago, and right, how much they ring a bell for what's going on today. He responds to this request to withdraw. He says, "We have not taken strange lands, nor are we ruling over foreign territory. We have returned to our ancestral inheritance, from which we had been unjustly expelled by our enemies. And now that we have been blessed with the opportunity, we will hold on to our ancestral land." Right? I'm not here, again, to tell people what to think, especially politically. And non-Jews in this land should be protected and enjoy a life of freedom and civil liberties and just a great life, really. Right? But we as Jews know that we have a small piece of real estate, a small corner in this very, very big world. And right, it's so important that we stay connected in whatever way we do and can or are able to and want to. And I feel like maybe those are kind of fitting words to end this online learning with. That, Hanukkah, as I said at the beginning, it spans the past, the present, and the future. Right? It shows us from where we come and we look into the lights, and like we gaze into like this hidden light, remembering the original intent for all of creation, for the Jewish people and for us as individuals. We're reminded of present-day matters, of similar struggles and conflicts that we're going through today, of cultural, influence and, forces in our lives and in the world around us today trying to pull us away from who we are essentially as Jews and as a Jewish nation. And then the future, our dreams. What are our hopes? What are our dreams? What are we looking for? Right? And Hanukkah comes to remind us, right, of what we can be and who we can be, but that we have to stand up and take an action to get there. Right? So many different aspects tied together in this one holiday of Hanukkah. It was a great opportunity for me. I wish we were able to share voice back and forth, that it wasn't just me talking, but it was a great opportunity for me to share some thoughts with you about this great holiday of Hanukkah. Thanks for tuning in, and wherever you are in the world, you should have a great and blessed rest of Hanukkah, and continue to feel that connection, right, that you probably felt at Emet Chasai with this land, with the Jewish people, with just being a Jew. Like, it's a real zchut, it's a real merit, a real blessing to be part of this nation, and to have holidays like Hanukkah that come around once a year to remind us of that. So Chag Sameach, Shabbat Shalom, and thanks for tuning in. All the best.